Well, welcome everybody to another Holistic Health Hour Zoom call. We have a number of questions that we want to get over that you guys sent in. So thank you for sending those in. So let's jump right to the questions. Dr. Connors, I have um, autoimmune Lyme disease. I have always felt with a lot of urinary tract infections, and I felt I've had a lot of urinary. Remember, I'm just copying and pasting your questions here. So a lot of UTIs throughout this. I drink plenty of water. Can't use the Cranzyme products from the clinic. Those are the US enzyme. Cranzyme is a product for UTIs because of the high oxalates. I seem to be getting these infections almost weekly. So one of the reasons that cranberry helps with UTI is it helps to acidify the urine and make a poorer environment for urinary tract infections. Um, that can be helpful. So even with the high oxalates, I would still try it. Make sure you don't have a reaction, just go slow. Um, there's also several other products that we have in the store. UT Synergy, I think that is a Designs for Health product that works real well. Um, so there are a number of other products that you can try for UTIs. The other thing is, okay, so let me finish the question so I can answer it better. I just purchased the Rife machine from the clinic and I'm waiting for it to come. Could you speak to why so many UTIs when I drink close to why I have so many UTIs when I drink close to a gallon of water a day? How often would you use the Rife machine for this issue? So if you have the Rife machine at home, it's a great tool for biotoxins. So the Rife is best utilized to help kill living organisms. So with Lyme disease. So I programmed your Rife when I sent it out, and I put Candida programs in there as you requested. And there's a bunch of urinary tract infection programs that are shorter, anywhere between 20 minutes a day or an hour and a half a day. And I would use those as often as you are sitting down. So I would set up the Rife in a place where typically at your bedside and set up your bedroom so that you can utilize it during the day when maybe you have a habit of I like to sit and read a book for about an hour every day, or I like to sit and watch TV before I go to bed. Well, that's when you can run the UTI programs, put the bulb right down by your bladder. So it's as close to your kidneys, your urine, or your bladder as possible. Um, and it can be very effective for UTIs. I would not stop, like I said before, trying some of the other products that are on the market. Yes, sometimes people get UTIs because they are dehydrated and they don't have a good flow through their kidneys. But remember, the possibility exists that a person can drink actually too much water. Then you're flushing out your electrolytes, and your urine doesn't have that acidity to help kill infection. So try backing off on the water. I try some things one at a time so you know what's working or not working. That one, I'd give it a couple weeks. I am dealing with mast cell issues, doing a good diet and using HistaClear. Concerned about getting rid of mold and heavy metals. I'm really not sure what binders to use. I have no gallbladder. I have autoimmune Lyme and would like to use the Rife machine. So, mast cell issues. What are mast cell issues? So, your mast cells create your immediate immune response. Histamine and a number of other chemicals are produced in a mast cell response. It's to elicit an immune response. Cytokines and chemokines are two types of chemical reactions that take place and are released by the mast cell in order to attract an immune response. Now, the problem is that we can end up with a hyper mast cell response, and we have all these inflammatory chemicals that I just mentioned, and then you have this inflammation in the tissues. So, why do people get mast cell hyper mast cell, we should actually say, because your mast cells are supposed to do this. Why do you get overproduction by the mast cells? Well, can be probably the most common reason is overexposure of things in our environment. So some things that have been causing that are viruses, the whole coronavirus issue, because it was, I believe, a laboratory made virus. It was upregulated to produce more of a response in the body, was causing a hypermast cell response in a lot of people. When a person is exposed to a lot of toxins, they can develop this. And then your mast cells can change. Your receptors on your mast cells can actually increase, and a person can be prone to a hyper mast cell response. That can be a real issue. So HistaClear, so understand the different histamine products that are out there. So a mast cell response happens in the tissues. So let's say in your sinuses or in your arm, and you get a rash on your arms, hyper mast cell response, right? Then what would you do to reduce that mast cell response? Well, I would use products like our products like Clear Histamine Scavenger. That is a product that would reduce histamines in the tissue. Another one is our product called Natural Clear Hist. Now those are two different products with completely different nutrients in them that some people do better with one and some people do better with the other. So I would try out those. Those are to reduce histamine in the tissue. Then both of those products I think have quercetin, but a person could take quercetin. A person could even use some of the flavonoids like resveratrol and curcumin and white willow bark uh, and stinging nettles, things like that. You could try some of those things. But these products have been formulated specifically for histamine in the tissue, the Clear Histamine Scavenger and the Natural Clear Hist. We actually have a child version of the Natural Clear Hist called Clear Hist Junior. That's for removing histamine in the tissue. When you look at your genes, that's typically your HNMT gene defect, not so much your DAO gene defect. It's a little technical. But your product that you're using HistaClear. HistaClear is the DAO enzyme that's made by the DAO gene. And that's typically really working in the gut. So when you take DAO enzyme, there's other companies that make DAO enzyme. That's our private label. HistaClear is the DAO enzyme. That's reducing histamine in the intestinal tract. You're not really absorbing that at all. It's not going to decrease histamine in the tissue, except it will decrease the histamine in your gut. So you'll have less absorption. So that's not a mast cell problem, though. So if you have hyperabsorption of histamines because of damaged gut, because of food sensitivity, so you're producing extra inflammation in the gut, that's a different problem than a mast cell hyperactivation syndrome. So a mast cell hyperactivation is because what's going on in the tissue really completely separate from the gut. So HistaClear should be taken with food. Well, you can take it without food too, because it'll clean up the gut. But definitely if you're eating food that has high histamine, you should take HistaClear. The negative about HistaClear is that it's a more expensive product. So unless it's a specific gut issue that you really want to calm down, I'd say start with the other products. Concerned about getting rid of mold. So having mold and heavy metals is another reason why a person could have mast cell activation. Remember, I said it could be because of toxins. Well, mold and mycotoxins from mold, as well as heavy metals and pesticides and herbicides and things like that, can cause mast cell activation, as well as adjuvants and vaccines, as well as anything that you're exposed to can increase mast cell activation. I'm not really sure what binders to use. So binders, this is really a totally different question because binders have to do with binding things in the gut. It doesn't, binders don't have anything to do with really getting rid of stuff in the tissues. My definition of binders is that you're really not absorbing it. You're using a binder to grab onto things in the gut. My favorite binder is the clear binder. But if you're taking fiber, that's a binder. There's just, you can't go wrong with different binders that are on the market. There's a lot of good binders on the market. Clear binder is a really good binder. That's our private label, but we have multiple different binders in our store. You can't go wrong with any of them. You really can't overtake binders. You can't hurt yourself with binders. You're not really absorbing binders. You just could be wasting money by taking too many, but you can't hurt yourself by taking too many binders, for the most part. But it really has nothing to do with whether you have a gallbladder or not. So binders are to grab onto toxins that your liver is getting rid of. And binders will help calm down any autoimmune disease because they do help calm down the inflammatory process in the gut, regardless if it's from Lyme or anything else. Are the supplements suggested from the defective genes? So this person had a genetic review with us, and we made recommendations for different supplements. So this person asked, are they determined by kinesiology? No. The supplements from your genetic review are based upon the defects in your gene pathways. They're not based upon kinesiology. So also, how do these supplements and food suggestions affect the defective pathway? Well, they're supporting it. So just because a person has gene defects doesn't mean that that gene pathway is like working horribly. It suggests that there's going to be issues, that you have a high probability of having issues in that pathway. And here's the suggestion. So that's what we make the suggestions in your genetic review based upon that pathway. You may not need it. So let's pretend somebody has huge issues with let's go back to the histamine pathway. So let's say they have defects in their DAO and their HNMT genes. And I mean, there are a whole bunch of twos in there. So you got twos and ones. Ones are a single allele defect, twos are a double allele defect. More of a problem, have a greater chance of having an issue with that pathway. And let's say it's really horrible. And I've talked to people, it's just like, oh my gosh, look at all the twos you got. Oh, you must really have histamine issues. And they're like, no, I don't have any histamine issues. And they really don't. And I dig into, a lot of people don't understand that it could be inflammation in your gut, could be, don't understand what that is. But let's say if they did and they're not really having problems, well, then maybe you don't need to even take those things. But you have to, the benefit of doing a genetic workup is that you get an idea of, boy, this could be a problem in the future. Maybe I should be careful of consuming too many histamines, or maybe I should, just be aware of that. So I, look for food sensitivities and things and try to clean up my diet. And you can help prevent a lot of things. So answering this question, do these supplements and food suggestions affect the defective pathway? Yes, they support that defective pathway. Will they at some point not be defective? No, you cannot. There's practitioners out there that say, yes, you're going to take this thing and you're going to change your genes. Okay, show me the proof, because there isn't any. It's easy to prove. Let's run your genetics. And you take their special supplements and then you run your genetics again and you don't have any defects. I've never, ever seen that. You're not going to change that gene. You're not going to change your genes. The only thing that you're going to change your genes is it could become worse if you're exposed to toxins. So you're exposed to poisons, it damages your genes. That's the problem with this whole stupid mRNA vaccine. It actually damages people's genes. And you end up with defects in different gene pathways that you never had, and you will pass them on to your children if you are still having babies. So horrible playing with people's genes. And why do we have defects in our genes? Well, some defects are good to have. Some defects, most are not good to have. So, and it's because we're exposed to poisons and toxins and maybe we weren't, but our parents were. Now we inherited their genes. I'll guarantee you, though I could never prove this effect, if we were able to go back in time and measure your grandfather's genes, they would look way better than yours. And but when your grandfather was exposed to poisons because they sprayed DDT in the street, then he had your mother and passed on the defects that he ended up developing from exposure to those poisons. Now your mother inherited those defects, even though she may never have been exposed to DDT. But now she's got defects in her cytochrome P450 pathway and her POM pathway. And now she passed them on to you, and you're exposed to Roundup and even have more defects in the cytochrome P450 pathway. And now you had babies and passed them on to your babies, and they have more issues with exposure to Roundup than you ever did because they have more defects. That's how it works. Can you get away with that? Can you fix that? Can you correct those defects? No, you can't. But they're not correctable. Do the right frequencies affect the genes by bringing the body in balance? Well, they can help support those defects depending on what you're running, but they're not going to fix your genes. They're not going to be fixed. So I think it's very valuable to run a genetic profile. Even if you're not having issues with something, you can learn how to best support it and to protect yourself. And it just brings to mind, some things like, okay, well, I'm still wanting to have children, and I want to pass on good genes to my kids. So I'm going to start cleaning up my diet and take care of myself and clean up my exposure to things. Helps us remember those things. Okay, thank you, everybody. Remember to send in your questions into the questions section on the course that you have subscribed to, and we'll get to your questions, hopefully, as we get inundated by questions, and I'll have to pick and choose, but right now we're able to get to everybody's questions. All right, with that, I'll say goodbye. No, I'm praying for you guys, and I love you all, and I wish you the best. Bye-bye.